Yeah. Oh, and I saw some beautiful ones downtown on 4th Street. This gorgeous house had a beautiful garden, and then a garden along the side, and they had the plants identified, and they had Grindelia was in bloom, and they had harvested some and put a little basket out saying, this is a native plant, this is Grindelia, it's used for lung support. And I was like, oh, people, this is so good.
That's really cool.
But they had a plumeria in their inner garden there. This is our, you may not touch it over here, you can smell. But it was a deep, like a magenta and red colors instead of the white and yellow. And it was quite aromatic. Quite aromatic. And that I'll bet you could do a hydrosol from. I mean, I would try hydrosols with anything, because why not?
Yeah. There's a house a couple of blocks away from me. I always walk when I go for walks. I always walk by there. And I'm always thinking to myself, I wonder if this person's always asleep, because their front yard is just filled with lavender. Like just the whole yard. And I'm like, I would be like every time I get home, because all the like smells come in.
Of course, yes. As you're all lively and peppy until you enter your front room. Okay, so we are working with a semi-plant related, plant adjacent, it's planty, it's sourced from plants, compound today, which is charcoal, activated charcoal. Right? It's charcoal, so it comes from a plant, so it totally counts. This charcoal, and it matters where the charcoal comes from, in that, you know, you want to make sure that it's an abundant resource. It's being burned to get you your charcoal. And you want to make sure that it doesn't have any waste products in there that can affect the purity of it. The primary ones that I use, I like bamboo and coconut hulls are two really clean and abundant resources, right? Coconut hulls and bamboo are both, you know, not at all in any danger of not being available to us. They burn very cleanly, and they result in a charcoal that is really clean. It doesn't have much other residual stuff in it. Marcos, good morning. Good morning for you. Good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon for you. Good morning for me. Hi, Al. Hi, Teresa. And video and audio working perfectly. Marcos, you are such a good tech person on the other side. We're talking about activated charcoal today. Activated charcoal, because I see a lot of products out there based on activated charcoal. I see a lot of people using activated charcoal and missing some of the basic concepts of how and why to use it. So we're going to formulate with it today, making a properly a poultice, a combination of clay and charcoal, forming the basis of a poultice. You can use it topically for any type of drawing action. You can apply it to the face as a facial treatment mask. But a facial mask is a poultice. It's a clay, generally clay or plant poultice. So that's what we're going to be doing today, and then we'll talk about ways to modify it and ways that we are not going to want to use it. So let's talk about what it is first. So when we talk about activated charcoal is a charcoal that has been burned in a controlled environment with limited amounts of oxygen, so that it can burn off the non-carboniferous compounds, right? Burn off everything else and just leave the pure charcoal without going to ash, right? So what we want to do is just have all of that black activated available charcoal. And when we make charcoal and clay both, so we're going to also work with clays, and we'll talk about clays too as well as charcoals. Both. We're not going to talk about heroin though. Both clays and charcoals have a quality of adsorbency. Adsorbency, as opposed to absorbency, right? So something that is absorbed is absorbed into the structure, right? It's taking in moisture. Think of a sponge, right? A sponge is sucking moisture into itself. It's absorbing it and holding it into its own structure. An adsorbent agent is something that is drawing compounds to the surface. It's drawing it to the surface. So the more surface area that's available, the more adsorbing action that you can have. And so the nature of activation of charcoal, the structure of charcoal, is such that can you adjust the board? I'm always needing to adjust the board. Thank you so much, Teresa, for also being part of the tech team. You and Marcos are awesome. What was I saying? How it's made. So when we activate charcoal, the process of manufacture means that each each particle is blown up and has an incredible amount of surface area available for adsorbency, for binding stuff, for grabbing stuff and bringing it to it, right? So the more surface area you have, the stronger that ability to attract and hold stuff to it is. Right? So the greatest adsorbent agent that we have of any adsorbent agent is activated charcoal. And that's why activated charcoal is so often used in poison control centers. The CDC recommends that we keep activated charcoal in our medicine cabinets because if you take a medication in a high dosage, or if you take the wrong medication, you take something, if you are able to take activated charcoal at the same time or while the compound is in the stomach, the charcoal can go in and adsorb, bind to, grab onto that medication and pull it out of the body. Same for many poisonous things, as long as it's in the stomach. Now the key is it can't have gone past the stomach into the intestinal tract, into the bloodstream. Once it's entered the bloodstream, charcoal's not going to act on it because charcoal is a large molecule and can only be held in the gastrointestinal tract, right? So as it's going through the gastrointestinal tract or as it's on the skin, as we're working with it as a poultice today, right? If it is in contact with the compound, it can bind to, adsorb, and hold on to it. The ionic charge between the charcoal and the thing that's grabbing is really, really strong. So it's able to grab it and hold it and keep it attached. And so as you take that charcoal off, whatever is attached to it is also going to be taken away. Or if you're taking it internally, as it's going through the gastrointestinal tract, it will have grabbed all of the stuff and you poop it out and there goes whatever the charcoal was bound to. So it's a really beneficial and really important therapeutic effect. The downside is there's no discernment that charcoal has, right? It's going to grab onto anything that it comes in contact with. And this is one of the primary problems that I see with formulation with charcoal. You see a lot of charcoal-based products out there on the market. You go into like coffee shops will have charcoal lattes, or they'll have charcoal detox lemonade things. You'll see charcoal face masks, charcoal poultices, these charcoal products, all of which are completely ineffective. They're 100% ineffective because as soon as the charcoal comes into a liquid medium, it's now active. It's relatively inert in a powder form. It's not going to be doing anything in this form. But as soon as water's there, it's going to start grabbing. And so if it's in a latte, it's going to grab onto the latte stuff. There's not going to be any ability of the charcoal once you're drinking your charcoal latte to go in and grab onto stuff in the gut. It grabbed onto the caffeine and the sugar and the tannins and everything, all of the chemistry that was in the coffee. So charcoal stays inert as long as it's dry, but as soon as it's liquid, it's going to be activated, it's going to start grabbing stuff. So one of the keys to making charcoal products, as you're going to be doing today, is you want to make it dry and keep it dry until you're ready to use it. And then once you're ready to use it, you add your liquid, you add whatever you're doing to bring it into a liquid medium. And now you apply it, you take it internally, you do whatever, and now you have free, available charcoal with lots of adsorbency, and it's going to be able to do the job that you wanted to do, right? Does that make sense?
So if you probably only want to mix it with water, because if you're mixing it with like an herbal compound, it's going to...
Right. 10 points to you for bringing up a very important other distinction here in what you formulate with and how. So yes, absolutely, we're going to go into that. I'm just not sure about this. So we can absolutely, so let me talk about the difference between charcoal and clay then. Clay is the other primary adsorbent agent that we're going to be using. So charcoal, if we were able to look at charcoal under a microscope, we'd see just this kind of ball of structure, right? That is how, because it's folded in on itself so much that makes just a tremendous, amount of surface area. And again, here, what we want to be mindful of is that surface area is the key to strength. We're going to put out another table because y'all are going to want to be at a table for the second part of this, but we don't have to do that right now. So that's the structure of charcoal. Clay has a structure more like a piece of paper, right? So charcoal is, if I took this piece of paper and crumpled it up, I'm actually going to do that to show you. That's actually a very, very good idea. Here. This is clay. The surfaces are the adsorbent size, right? So, part. So as it goes along a surface, it's going to be grabbing compounds to itself and holding them. Activated charcoal is like this, right? So it still has all that surface area, but it takes a much smaller space. So just in terms of volume, you can get more adsorbency in X amount of space using activated charcoal than clay, just by virtue of the structural change, right? Clay also quite often contains other things. Clay is in itself a mineral, and depending on where it's sourced from, it's going to have other minerals in with it. The more pure clays, generally there's about 4 clays that we usually see available. So we have kaolin. Kaolin clay is the mildest clay. It's a white clay. Teresa, you can't see that. There we go. So kaolin is a white clay. It's a very mild clay. It's the lightest adsorbent quality of all the clays. It's a very light texture, and it will bind things. It'll draw things, absolutely. But it's very good for people who have more sensitive skin, who don't want the strongest effect. If you're using it for children, if you're using it on skin that already has some irritation or inflammation. Yeah, oh, did that help with the board, Richard? Thank you. Charcoal works like that. Isn't so hard to understand if you know a little bit about the science behind how it's supposed to work. Like a sponge. Exactly, Mark. Well, not like a sponge, because the sponge is absorbent, it's an adsorbent, but yes, yeah, basically. And as long as you keep that in mind, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. A lot of people don't keep that in mind and how it's working and what it's doing when assessing the value or the benefit of a product. So hence this class. So kaolin clay is a pretty pure clay. So it's light textured, it's delicate, it's the mildest clay to start with. Up from there, we would have the mineral containing clays, and there's 2 of them. There's, I don't need to write this down, red clay. Red clay is red because of the presence of minerals. The primary mineral would be what? What mineral do you think would be present in high amounts to turn a clay red? Yeah, it's oxidized iron, yeah. So there's a higher amount of iron in red clay and other mineral compounds. So the iron in red clay, the primary value that I see ascribed to that is the ability to enhance oxygen. Iron enhances oxygen carrying capacity of red blood cells, and it generally increases oxygen activity in an area. The problem here is that when we increase oxygen activity in an area, we're increasing oxidative damage, and oxidative damage is oxidative damage. So while oxygen is really helpful internally, it's not necessarily helpful topically or externally. And so lots of people like using red clay. There certainly is that mineral content. I'm not sure about the value of having a predominantly iron-rich clay topically. It sure is pretty, but beyond that, it's probably my least favorite of all of the clays. And I do have some concerns about that excess iron. Green clay is also darker colored because of the presence of minerals. And the minerals in green clay come from the Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Marcos. Come from decomposed fossilized plant material. Right, so because it's a wide range of sea vegetables, we have a really wide range of minerals in there. And so the green clay powder, being a sea-sourced clouder instead of an earth clay-based clouder, does have a wider range of minerals. And so that makes it more beneficial for the skin. We do also want to acknowledge that those minerals are going to be bound by that quality of adsorbency to a certain extent, but not 100%. Because there's no 100%. It's gonna adsorb until the surface is full, and then it's gonna stop adsorbency. So yes, there is mineral availability in the green clay powder. No, not all of it is going to be available to you because of the binding, but yes, some of that will be available there, certainly more than in other clays. It has a moderate drawing action to it, so it's able to draw, to detoxify tissues, to pull things to it at a pretty great. And yeah, adding clays to soaps are really, really nice. Clay reduces the size of the bubbles. Teresa, do you make soaps at home? Clay will generally reduce the size of the bubbles and makes the structure of the foam a little bit more like silky. It makes a really nice texture to the foam in your soaps. So I really like the combination. Try, if you haven't done this already, try clays. You want to limit it. You only want to do about maybe 2 tablespoons of any type of clay to like a 16-ounce loaf, depending on the size of your loaves. Because more than that will really suppress the foaming quality. It reduces the size of the soap bubbles until eventually there are no soap bubbles. So more is not necessarily better. So keep it to about 2 tablespoons. But try it out and see how you like it. I really do like the consistency, and get just a little bit of a really mild exfoliating quality to it, which is nice. But what you're not getting is you're not getting any adsorbency, because all of that ability to bind stuff is going to be in that saponification process. It's going to be all gone. So there's not going to be any qualities that clay has that we generally ascribe to clay that are going to be available in that clay soap. Right? But you can apply it afterwards as a powder. So those are the adsorbent compounds, right? We can use clay and we can use charcoal as the basis for those. Now, adding herbs to it, as you were saying, one of the qualities of if we're adding other things, so we have some herbs along the side there, and now I forgot what I put out there, so y'all are gonna have to yell out to me. Hold on just a moment, and then I'm gonna ask you, and then we'll kind of go through those. And so I grabbed a number of powders. I make soaps, and my first soap was one with clay. Oh, nice, in 1996. Marcos, you are old. Yeah, I really love the clay soaps. But yeah, the what they actually do is different. We can, when we're adding herbs to clays, is very much like, Marcos, the concept of adding herbs to soaps. Both clays and soaps, there's an exception to this, and I'll get to the exception afterwards. But both clays and soaps are generally drawing things off of the skin, right? They're cleansing, they're bringing stuff away from. And so generally, they are poor media to put stuff that is nourishing in there, right? Because particularly in a soap, because of the chemistry of soap, it's not going to allow for anything to be absorbed in, because it is increasing the solubility of anything that you would put on the skin and pulling it off, because it's a soap. So soaps are really therapeutically active ingredients of almost any form, are just label copy in soap, because they're in a soap base, and soap pulls things out. It's not going to let things go in. But in a clay, we have a different thing, because, or in a mass where we're using clay, or in an adsorbent poultice. I'm going to use the term poultice, and you're going to know that it means just this kind of umbrella term. So in a poultice, we have both we have an extended time that something is going to be on the tissue, on the surface of the skin. And so we have, and the poultice is able to hold it in place there. And so we do have a certain amount of therapeutic quality that can be delivered there. And also at the same time, we're using an adsorbent agent, which is going to be pulling stuff out and going to be binding things. So we want to choose the qualities of the herbs that we're adding to that with that in mind. And so I've got a bunch of them that are either good or bad. Options for you to use, and we'll discuss how and why, and I'll maybe ask y'all to input on that. Con, did you have a question?
I did, so you might have said it when I stepped out, but when you were talking about the minerals, like in the clay and then some of this, since that is happening, how do we get any benefits from minerals?
Well, so it's not 100% absorption,
Right.
not 100% adsorption. So there's going to be some mineral content there, and that's why it's not exactly the same as like a soap, where you'd be getting really nothing out of there. You will be getting some, especially kind of depending on, and that's what we're going to kind of go into with the herbs, depending on what you're looking for, what you're combining it with, how long you're leaving it there. Right, so there are some qualities. So let me go through this part, and then we'll see if I answer your hey, and we'll see if I answer your question there. Hi, welcome. You can grab a chair over there, or could someone grab a chair and bring it over to the side here? Thank you. Hey, no problem.
You forgot to say the fourth type of clay really quick before you.
Thank you. I did forget the fourth type of clay. And you have great timing. Before this, we've just been talking. We're about to start the play part of the class, so you came in the fun time. So kaolin, red clay, green clay. The fourth one is bentonite clay. Bentonite clay. And bentonite clay has the strongest drawing action. So it's the best one of what you really want to do. If you need to pull something out of there, we're talking about the use of activated charcoal and clays as things to draw stuff to themselves. And I knew that, and so we modified everything that we were doing because we were making some elderberry syrup. But when we heard that you were coming over here, we thought, oh, we better bring up the activated charcoal for you. So bentonite, the drawing effect of bentonite is so strong that you do need to be cautious about it. For dry skin, it's just going to pull all of that oil out of there. For sensitive skin, the drawing action is so strong that you can actually be drawing a lot of blood to the surface. You can cause a lot of redness, irritation, dryness. If you're using it as, say, on the face, because you have acne-prone skin, this is a really common thing that happens. People do a clay facial mask because they're going somewhere fancy tomorrow, and so they wanted to do something today for tomorrow, which is a great thought, except that if you use something like a bentonite clay, that drawing effect is so strong that if you had like metabolic waste products kind of further down in the surface, this drawing action means that next day you're just popping out with zits because you've just drawn everything to the surface. And that was just exactly wrong. You wanted to have done that 3 or 4 days ago instead of the day before. So things like that you want to be mindful of when you're using bentonite clay, or you would use the kaolin clay as a milder clay, and you wouldn't have that response. So bentonite. Bentonite is also, of all of these, it is the primary clay that is generally used when we take clays internally. It is considered to be the purest form. It is technically an aluminum compound. Most of the clays have aluminum in them. The structure of aluminum in them is very, very large and bound to the clay. We do not get any aluminum absorption when we're using clays topically or even internally, because you need a molecular size that's conducive to absorption, and that aluminum is bound in there. So it is a concern that people often have when they see actually the mineral structure of clays and realize that they're aluminum. They're always aluminum. They always have been aluminum. It's okay. In this form, the aluminum is fine, and I'm not saying that aluminum is in general is fine. I'm saying that the form in montmorillonite, which is the compound that we use in clay, is not bioavailable. So, what are the herbs that we have on on the table there?
Marshmallow root.
Marshmallow root. So marshmallow root we can understand why marshmallow root would be used, right? Marshmallow root is mucilaginous. Topically, when we use marshmallow root or any slimy herbs like marshmallow, they are what we call emollient. They're able to hold moisture on the surface of the skin. So when we add marshmallow root to something like this, we're both getting that absorbent quality, but that marshmallow root is modifying the energetics. And this is the best use of herbs that we add to a clay base, is modifying the immediate energetic action of the poultice on the skin. So we're modifying energetics, the energetic areas that we generally look at are we look at moisture, and we look at the thermal qualities, and we look at structural. And there are ways to modify each of these immediately. Immediate changes like this are generally not long-term because they're working on the surface, right? So these are short-term, immediate changes to tissue states on the surface of the skin. So this is an obvious one. We add marshmallow root into a poultice like this because it's going to allow that poultice to hold the moisture. It means you're going to have to add more water into the poultice because that marshmallow root is going to be absorbing some of this, and the marshmallow root is absorbent while the clay and the charcoal are adsorbent, so you have a dual action there. As the clay stays on the surface, it's delivering moisture to there at the same time as it's drying, and as long as it stays wet, it is going to be an emollient. Once the marshmallow starts to dry, it becomes a drawing agent too. As it dries and the moisture starts to leave the mass that's the mucilage, it starts to shrink in volume, and as it shrinks in volume, it draws to itself because it's shrinking, right? And so you can use that to your benefit. You may want that additional drawing action. You can, if you allow it to fully dry, then it is a stronger poultice, a stronger drying action than if you just use the clay and the marshmallow. If you keep it moist, it's going to be better at delivering moisture into that area. So one is going to have a drying effect and one is going to have a moistening effect depending on whether you keep the pack dry or moist. And we'll talk about ways to extend that too. What was the next one? Burdock. So burdock is a plant that we often use topically for nourishing of the skin, for detoxification. Burdock topically is really, really nice for acne-prone skin. However, the mechanism by which it works is unknown and complex, and it is not one that I would put into a blend like this because it doesn't have an immediate energetic structural change. It is more complex, and I am skeptical that the addition of burdock into this type of a formula would be effective. You can try it, you can do whatever you want, but I don't think that it would work very well just because of the qualities of the medium that we're working in, right? But I mean, burdock is an abundant thing. You could throw it in and see how how it works. It would be really hard to assess effectiveness, right? How are you going to assess whether it worked or not? Right? You can just make stuff up because we make stuff up all the time, but I don't know if it'll be effective. What's the next one? And thank you for doing this. Schizandra. So Schizandra has, right? So why do you think, Khan, Schizandra would be good?
The tingling,
tingling, yeah.
Blood moving.
Right? We're not worried about absorption. We're not worried about solubility of constituents. So we do have those terpenes that are available in the seed that are available topically. Not that they're going to have an adaptogenic effect on the skin, right? We're not saying that, but exactly, it's tingly, it's warming, it's stimulating. And at the same time, what are the other qualities, the other primary quality of Schizandra when you're not getting a seed extract? It's very tonifying. It's astringent, exactly, yes. It's astringent. And so we can use it for the astringent qualities too. And we could throw in, whatever other astringent compound that we have. Lots and lots and lots of tannin-rich plants that we could throw in there. Tannins are a great thing to add to a formula like this. Tannins bind to skin and make the skin more of an impermeable membrane, stops bleeding, closes surfaces up. We do want to maybe not throw tannins in if what we're looking at is drawing from deep down in the skin, right? If we're relying on the pack, on the poultice to be a drawing agent, and then we're also putting tannins in there that are closing down the surface of the skin, that are binding the surface of the skin, we're giving two different messages there. One is saying, yeah, draw stuff out, and one is saying, but you can't draw it out here. Right? So maybe not put the rose or yarrow or schizandra or whatever if you are wanting to do that deep detoxification drawing action. Just depends on what you want from your formula. What's the next one?
Yeah, that would be a little contradiction because the stimulating quality would bring more blood flow, right? But then the astringency would.
Well, it would bring more blood flow to the surface because it's stimulating that underlying quality, but that is also an energetic pattern, right?
But that would help
That's
if
an
you're wanting to
energetic,
pull
that's
more
a
stuff.
thermal. So we're talking about two different ones.
But because it's astringent, then it's not going to allow.
But astringency is structural,
Oh.
and that warmth is thermal, right? So we're drawing the blood up to the surface. There's the surface. We're making the surface a less permeable membrane, but we're drawing the blood up to that surface. What we would expect to see there would be what? Redness. Yeah, yeah.
Swelling?
Possibly swelling because we did also kind of limit that, but you wouldn't do that if you saw a potential for swelling there. If you saw kind of red, hot, inflamed skin already, it would be a stupid idea to put schizandra as your tannin of choice there, right? Because you don't want to be drawing that up. There's already heat there. You'd want to use something like rose, right? Something else that has the tannins, but not that heating quality, right? We don't put heat on heat. Yeah.
So then with some of these, then what I'm thinking is like, well, because the clay is absorbent, you might want to use clay to pull things in and then do a different mask to give things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can make things into a treatment, right? And have that separate. And have that be, you can even make it all herbs, right? Just herb powders that you mix into your hydrosol, because now you can use your hydrosol because you don't have anything that is blocking absorption. Mix all of that up, slap that on you, yeah. Now you have a treatment there. Absolutely. So dual. Again, and this kind of goes to, I'll stop talking so that we can play pretty soon. I want to go through this. Like soaps, right? If you're getting a soap that has rosehip seed oil in it, that's a waste of expensive oil. Rosehip seed oil, there's nothing is gonna do any benefit with rosehip seed oil in a soap. But you use the soap, use a plain old soap with no rosehip seed oil, and then you apply the rosehip seed oil. Afterwards, it's able to stay on the face and exert some therapeutic effects. Yeah, so yeah, biphasic treatment. That is kind of what we've also talked about in terms of herb-drug interactions, right? It's the timing of things, right? Makes all the difference in whether something is a good or a bad combination. Farhana, hey, hi. Marshmallow poultice has worked really well on reactions, a lot of swelling and itching. I've had to bug bites. Would adding a clay or charcoal be any benefit? It would be, yeah, it would be if you did it right away. So if you've had a bee sting, you have a bee sting and there's still the stinger there, maybe it's even pulsing right there. If you're able to go in and scrape that away and then grab some clay or charcoal and put that right on right away, the venom is still local, it hasn't dispersed, and there would be the ability of the adsorbent agents to go in and bind to it right away. If there's been a delay, nah, because it's dispersed, right? At that point, it's gone into the bloodstream, it's gone deeper into the tissues, and you only have a local effect of adsorbent quality, of adsorbent things. Same thing if you were using it for like a snake bite, right? If you were able to go in right away and make a charcoal slurry and get it right on that snake bite and do that on the way to the emergency room, by the way, you wouldn't just be relying on the charcoal, then you would be able to grab some of that, but I mean, snake bite venom is also, it's proteolytic, it breaks down proteins so that specifically it can kind of spread through the tissues. And so that's kind of that's a lost game anyway. So think of that in bug bites and bee stings, that generally also the insect itself facilitates movement of its venom into your tissues by irritating by releasing enzymes, by producing things. It's not just the venom itself, it's actually the ability of other stuff in the saliva, in the secretions to move it through there. So you really do have to be very, very quick with it. But yeah, otherwise marshmallow is just going to be soothing and calming and moistening, reduce some of that heat, reduce some of that inflammation. And it can absorb some of the metabolic waste products that accumulate in that area that are continuing the irritation. So the initial irritation is because of secretions from the insect itself to keep the blood thin and stop coagulation primarily. But that causes a lot of reactivity, and so the marshmallow root and even possibly some of the clay could go in and grab onto some of that stuff, right? The metabolic markers and waste products that are there because the skin got pissed off and it's wanting to be pissed off right now, right? So all the histamine and cell stuff. But yeah, if you get it right away, exactly. Tick bites, I don't know. Tuka, remind me of where you live. Are you on East Coast? Because y'all East Coasters have a different relationship than we West Coasters have with tick bites. Or if you're in a different country, then I don't even know. I thought, yeah. So yeah, tick bites are a much bigger issue for you than they are to me, because no, I'm not going to talk about tick bites right now. I'm going to let them play with their stuff. Sorry. Yeah, so bad. I know I hear horrible things about the ticks and Lyme disease there, but the Lyme spirochete, I am going to say it just really, really quickly, and then I'll go on. The Lyme spirochete's primary host in our region is the western fence lizard, and western fence lizard is cold-blooded, and it can't spread the spirochete, so we don't get Lyme disease because of the western fence lizard being one of our protective agents in this area. So we love our lizards. Whereas if they go to the deer, right, and the rodents in your area, they're warm-blooded, and you see a lot more. You see the proliferation of the spirochetes in the blood of warm-blooded creatures than cold-blooded creatures. So. Which is why, fucking stupid, I'm sorry, I just have to say it. I wasn't going to, but I just have to. Matthew Wood did a stupid, one of the most ridiculous and stupid things, and I don't think I will ever forgive him about this, telling people to make tinctures of western fence lizard as treatment for Lyme disease. There's like, no, that is the appropriate face, Miles. That is exactly the appropriate face to use. Yes, people were making tinctures of western fence lizard because he had this boneheaded idea that would initiate an immune response in our bodies because the western fence, it's because it's cold-blooded. It's not because there's some magical immune thing. It's because it's cold-blooded. And we're not going to confer a cold-bloodedness onto us by taking a fence lizard tincture.
It doesn't activate because my kids have gotten bit by the lizards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It can't transfer.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
No. Because they're cold-blooded. Yes. And if they would just pay attention when they did their little push-ups to them and said, "Get away from me." That's why the fence lizard's doing the push-ups. Yes. There's good ways you can make, do they know how to make a leash? Okay, good. Because if you make a proper leash and you get okay. All right. I approve of leashing lizards and playing with lizards and then gently releasing them. And when they bite, it isn't that bad.
No. I've seen enough.
Okay. Enough of this. Yuck. Exactly, Farhana. Exactly, Teresa. Exactly. Yeah. No. It's, yeah. All right. So, what did we not talk about in this line here? Comfrey, energetic, moistening, stimulating immediate effects. We do want to be cautious with comfrey because it can stimulate new cell growth and close stuff off. It's not likely to do this because you have the drawing agents, but you still want to be kind of mindful of what you're putting it on, especially if you're using poultice. If you're using a poultice, it generally means that there's some opening underneath it. And so, yeah, if you are choosing to use comfrey on there, you better be really, really cautious about what's going on in that deeper tissue. Surface tissue, that would be fine. What is the next one? Cinnamon, energetic, right? We can add a little bit of cinnamon in there. And so that will change the thermal qualities of the of the poultice. Really good if we have cold, so we don't want to put heat on heat, but we do want to put heat on cold. And so if we have an area that we're really, for whatever reason, we're wanting to increase that circulation, we're wanting to draw blood to the surface, we're wanting to draw blood to that area. Maybe we have muscles or joints that are really cold and tight and dry. We just want to kind of warm them up. A poultice would be a weird way of doing that, but you can do that. Sure, it's your body. You put whatever you want on it. What else is there? Moringa. So moringa, you see moringa in a lot of different things. Moringa is very, very nourishing, right? It's a green. It's the tree that we have right out here next to the driveway is a moringa tree, and those leaves are very, very, very nourishing. So moringa is quite often used as a nourishing agent. Here, I don't know that it would be beneficial in something like this because, again, you have a nourishing green thing and a base of adsorbent compounds. I think that would mostly be a waste of moringa, but yeah, you could use it. Chaparral. Chaparral, very strongly antimicrobial, very strongly antifungal. So if you're using chaparral for a fungal infection, for an infection, this is going to be one of the strongest poultices that you could make if you did have a deep infected wound, if you had something really nasty going on, if you had a fungal infection and you wanted to dry out. Remember that fungal infections like dryness. And so if you want to dry out that fungal infection, the underlying tissue, a clay and charcoal and chaparral poultice, chaparral being strongly antifungal and leaving those resins there to persist after you wash that clay off, is going to be really, really strong, and you are going to dry out that underlying tissue. One of the problems of using a lot of treatments topically for fungal infections is they're often bringing moisture to that area, and funguses love moisture. Bring more moisture to it, put a salve on there, an oil or something, they're super happy about that. So we want to have things that are going to be drying it out, and this is a great way of drying it out. It's one of the problems with clays is that they're drying out tissues. We can use that to our advantage in this way. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
So I was going to ask for, when you have, when you feet smell.
Yeah. Chaparral in a tincture form can be sprayed on, or it can be combined with the vinegar. Changing the pH of the skin is really, really good. Also, funguses hate changes in pH. They hate dryness. They hate aromatic resins. They hate changes in temperature. So using all of those things combined, alternating, will generally disrupt them enough that you can get that underlying skin to heal and then have a healthy surface. You can't get rid of the funguses. They're going to be there. They're there forever and always. All you can do is just get the surface healthy, get rid of all that stuff, and then keep it stable. But it takes months to years of concerted effort to do. But you might as well do it. You got months and years. It's either you'll get rid of it or you won't. Right. But yeah, chaparral is a great thing to use for that.
Would it still be okay for chaparral in particular if it was infused in oil?
For fungal infections?
Yeah.
So yes, and also you are trapping moisture. So what I would be mindful of with that is making sure that the tissue is really dry before you applied it. You wouldn't want to apply chaparral oil after taking a shower, right? Because after a shower, that skin is rehydrated. There's a lot of moisture in there, and then you're putting that oil over there. And remember that oil traps moisture underneath it. It's a barrier. Right? And so even though you had chaparral in that oil that is specifically antifungal, you are also supporting an ecosystem, an environment that is supportive to the growth of fungus. And so how is that area going to respond? Don't know. But it would respond better if you had waited and dried off that tissue completely before applying it.
Is chaparral dog safe?
I wouldn't use it in abundance because it is very, very resinous, and it's strong medicine. The nice thing is it tastes so vile that especially if they're like chewing on their paws a lot because they've got an irritation, it can reduce or if they're chewing on a hot spot or something, it can reduce their licking or their chewing.
I was thinking of like an acetum, and is there enough, like it would be too much?
Yeah.
Would that be safe?
So the acetum would not extract the resins as well.
So, okay, so then I would, okay, got it.
Yeah. But also there's compounds other than resins in there, but the resins are the big one. You could make a tincture and dilute it in vinegar. That would be an option. Babesiosis. I don't know that name, Beach Life. If you can, is the name of what? I'm not sure what you're asking about there. Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure. So let me know about more information on that one, and then I'll answer that for you. So do we have any other of our herbs in our?
Licorice root.
Licorice root, anti-inflammatory, moistening. The anti-inflammatory effects are not going to be as long with licorice root in a medium here as they would be if we were infusing it into an oil. But it is going to be moistening and calming. Topically to the tissues would be really, really nice if there was redness, heat, inflammation that we wanted to modify. So we could use licorice, we could use marshmallow to modify the drawing actions of the clays while also we're keeping them moist. Oh, the tick bite, yes. The name of the spirochete. Yes, thank you. Absolutely it is. And I don't remember what it is, but it begins with B and it ends with a is. And yeah. That caused the, yeah. Yeah, don't know. And again, the way that we deal with ticks here on the West Coast, we're not really great people to ask about tick stuff because our relationship with ticks is different than the relationship with, I would talk to Teresa. Talk to Teresa about ticks. Or no, Tuco, sorry, talk to Tuco about ticks. All right, so anything else? Did we get to everything?
Nopal.
Nopal as another moistening thing. If you don't have marshmallow root around, nopal is the cactus, right? Nopal cactus. So the inner gel is a very good moistening thing, like aloe. So what you're going to do in 15 minutes, or less, we have little bowls here. I invite you to combine a clay with. We have little spoons. You're going to combine a clay and charcoal. Or no charcoal. This is a class on using charcoal, but a class on using charcoal also includes when not to use it. And you may decide that you want to make a formula that doesn't include charcoal. It's your formula. You get to make whatever you want to make. And so if the formula that would best suit your purposes at this time does not have any charcoal in it, do not put charcoal in your formula. Use clay or just use herbs. But you're going to make a blend. This is going to be a soup kind of class, so you're just going to be throwing stuff in there. You don't have to measure it. If you feel very uncomfortable with that and you really want to measure out your ingredients, I have scales there. You're absolutely invited to use, but you're not going to need to do that. It's not going to be that much of a problem. You're just throwing stuff together and making a poultice. And if you want to try it, you can mix a little bit with water and apply it to your hand or your arm and see how it feels as it dries. One more thing really quickly, when we're talking about things that we're adding to it, we can add water. We can put it into a water medium. We can put apple cider vinegar or any kind of apple cider vinegar type thing. You could absolutely use aloe in there. Yes, Marcus. You could add aloe juice as your liquid, or you could use an aloe powder the same way as you're using nopal or the marshmallow. So either way there, and that way the emollient qualities of the marshmallow would be on hold along with the drawing qualities of the charcoal until you added a water in there, and then they would all both activate, and then you'd get both of them going on. So absolutely you could do that. You can add tinctures, you can add glycerites, you can add hydrosols, but you do want to be mindful of, are they actually going to be adding any benefit the same way you would assess addition of any herbs. And oils are really good if you want to keep the poultice wet. If you do not want the poultice to dry out, you need to stop the poultice from drying out, and water is always going to evaporate. but oil won't. So if you want the poultice to stay wet for a long period of time because you want to keep that drawing action, or because you want it to be holding moisture, holding nutrients for a longer period of time, always adding a little bit of oil in there is going to be helpful for extending the moisture of that. Okay. Oh, that's Marcos. I was looking at what you wrote before and trying to interpret it, but now I understand. All right, so we've got bowls right here. We've got tiny spoons. We've got the herbs and charcoal and clay powders. Go to town and make a blend for yourself. If you have any questions, you can ask me about it. I'm here. If you have any questions, I'll keep the chat open while they're making. If you have any questions about this or any other questions, and then you are going to take a little. Baggie, thank you. Yeah, I can remember Montmorillonite, but I can't remember baggie. You have a baggie and you have a label. So you're going to label your baggie. Always label your product so you know what you've got. Put your powder into your baggie and then take it home. All right. Any questions before you start that? Yes.
So the main reason we wouldn't use activated charcoal, which is not used because it has more absorbency.
Yeah, and you might not want that. You might have decided on an herb that we were talking about, or a quality of a clay that you want to work with, and maybe you've decided, oh, but that just really wouldn't work with the charcoal, and so maybe I don't want to add the charcoal in there, which is fine, right? So there's that. Or you might want to. What were you thinking of doing? Oh. Here's bowls. Yeah. That will be good.
Shazam like Spelunkies?
No. You
It's
have
like
it?
tingling.
Well, you want to try something?
Sure.
Do you eat honey?
Oh yeah.
This is Spelanthes electuary. So this is Spelanthes. No, I'm lying. No. Shazandra. I wouldn't be that mean to you. I wouldn't
Well,
give you a
I actually
Spelanthes
like
electuary.
Spelanthes.
You're weird.
I know. I'm growing them, and I just like will take a little bite of the flower.
Just even a tiny little bit of the flower head.
But I've done it to other people. They don't like it.
No,
But I
no,
warn
people
them.
generally don't. I had someone bring their kids into the apothecary garden, and I had a big bed of Spelanthes flowers, and I had one bud, and I was taking little bits of the inflorescence and giving people just little bits of it at a time. And she came in and was like, oh, that's great. And she grabbed whole buds and went to her kids and said, eat this, and gave them whole buds to chew on. But it's like, look at the volume I was giving. Look at what you are giving your children.
She didn't try it herself first.
Oh, she knew what it was.
She knew.
But she didn't eat one of the full buds by herself. Absolutely not. She did not. What do you think of that?
That's good.
Yeah. Lavender. Lavender. That's the lavender hydrosol that we made in class. So I thought that would be fun to. Oh, you're not putting. Well, yeah, you can if you want to make some right now. Absolutely. But as soon as this was more of just kind of demonstrating.
So I shouldn't have, these two would have been fine.
Nope. What you want to do today is just the powders, because we're making a dry powdered one because the powders stay inert until you add moisture to them. This is what you missed when you were talking to the vet. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're just doing the clays and the things. Just
And you just put it all
yeah,
over my face.
just put it all over your face.
Yeah, and all over
something.
my arms.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
perfect.
and then just do the powders.
Did you do hydrosol last class? Did I miss it? The lavender hydrosol? Did you make it
Class
last?
before last. Was it last class?
It
Was
must have
it?
been last because I was here.
Was it
2
the
weeks
last
ago.
class that we did the hydro? You weren't here. No.
No, the last class,
Oh.
No. Yeah, the last class was.
something with chaperone or no?
No.
I loved it.
It was the frankincense. Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah. Chaparral was the last class was frankincense. The one before that was the hydrosol because I was distilling with my students the day before.
Oh.
So often if I'm working with my students the day before, I'm like, okay, y'all get to do what my
Yeah.
kids are doing.
This is me.
Okay.
did wanna check out your there.
Okay.
And, so, do I know that
If you can talk to me about this afterwards, I do have people online that I want to just kind of be mindful of, but we can absolutely talk about that another time. If you go onto the website, you saw the page for the apprenticeship program, so that has all the information there. October 1st, 9 a.m. is when it opens for applications, not a moment before that. Yeah.
I had a question.
Yes.
Is there a recommended like ratio for clay?
No, because it really depends on what you want from your formula. Yeah, you'll see people who will say this is the recommended ratio. It absolutely depends on what you need, right? So if you want something that has a stronger drawing agent, you're going to have more of the clay. If you want a really strong drawing agent, you'd want to use the strongest drawing clay, which is the bentonite. If you want to add to that, you'd want to add the this, but maybe you don't, right? You can just kind of play around with it. If you, hi. Look at you, take it bigger. Like a hug.
Yes, I'm here to work. My class was late, so I missed all the.
That's okay, you're still here for the fun.
Miss most of the discussion about the stuff though when I was.
Well, you can hear the discussion afterwards. That'll be an interesting way to do it. You make it first and then you learn about it second.
Oh, you're so sweet.
We have rattlesnakes. Whoa, I'm sorry. Oh, Abahita, hi, I didn't see you there earlier. Hold on, I'm trying to scroll down. Boy, you folks, you have a whole discussion here without me. Hold on. Okay, I'm going back. Hold on. Would castor oil be good to add?
Sorry, I have like a million.
Castor oil would be good to add. So castor oil contains a fatty acid called ricinoleic acid, and ricinoleic acid has a stimulating quality to lymphatic and blood flow in underlying tissues. So if you were looking to increase that without maybe using a warming herb, right? Because ricinoleic acid works differently than, say, if you were going to put ginger or cayenne or cinnamon in there, which is more of an irritating effect. So castor would be good. This goes back to the Matthew Wood idea about the lizard tincture, something similar, though maybe not the same. For snake poison, you catch the poisonous snake and soak them in the alcohol. Hita. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. So that's different, Abahita. So one of the ways that I can see that being different. If you were to make a snake tincture, and that does sound abhorrent to me, by the way, absolutely. But if you were to make a snake tincture, you would have some of the venom in there, and I would imagine that would be part of the medicine there, would be the venom portion of that. And I wonder if the concept behind that is that concept of like treats like, that taking a small amount of the venom would initiate a response in the body that would make it maybe more resistant or resilient in the presence of venom. Does that make sense? So that would be, if that is so, and I don't know if that is the rationale behind the making of the behind the making of the snake tincture. But if that is the rationale, it's very different than what Matthew was discussing with the fence lizard, because the lizard, the only reason that the lizard would be beneficial in the tincture is because of its resistance to the spirochete, and the only reason that it's resistant to the spirochete is its cold-bloodedness, and that can't be transferred. The venom, the susceptibility to the venom, I could potentially see being something that would be transferable, right? But cold-blooded is not. Do you see what I mean with that? And that's why it doesn't really, I don't think of them as equal, even though they seem equal on the surface, if you kind of look at the qualities that are trying to be transferred there. But yeah, it does kind of seem like people, make things up, and our brains make things up. So our brains, we have beautiful, wonderful brains that are great at seeing patterns in things, and that's also our downfall, because we will see patterns in things that are not there, and so that means making things up. We have rattlesnakes where we live, and closest hospital's over an hour away. I'm always thinking about it. I would think about it too. Anti-venom, where you don't kill the snake. Snake. Okay, yes, anti-venoms. Yeah. Yeah, and anti-venoms are expensive. They're expensive to get, so it'd be really nice, but yeah, problematic. So, yeah, that's my feelings about the snake venom thing. All right. Anything else for you? Maybe we should stop with the snake anti-venom. Yeah. All right. So, all right, folks. Thank you for showing up. So good to see y'all. I will see you next week. And meanwhile, go play with some clay and charcoal and all of that. All right. Bye-bye. Thank you, Abahita. Take care. Thanks, Teresa. Good to see you. Farhana, good to see you. Better to see you in person, but I'm happy to see you there. Tuko, thank you for your input. Marcos, as always, thank you for all your help. All right. Bye-bye, you guys.